Have you ever wondered why you can't truly let go, even when someone keeps hurting you? You say you're ready to move on. You claim you're done. But then why do they still linger in your mind every single day? Why, even knowing the pain they've caused you, does your heart still leap at every notification, hoping it's them? Be honest, it's not really them you miss. It's the idea of them, the illusion your heart clung to, the fantasy of who you believed they were or could become. Carl Jung once said, "What we do not face in ourselves, we will find as fate." And maybe that's exactly what's unfolding in your life right now. This isn't just a breakup. It's a confrontation, a deep, uncomfortable confrontation with yourself. That person, that relationship, is a mirror, and what it's reflecting might be something you've never had the courage to fully see. This video isn't about superficial advice or sugar-coated affirmations. It's not going to tell you to just move on as if nothing happened. No, here, the truth might sting. It will press on wounds you've tried to bury. But if you're ready, it will also free you. Because sometimes, what we call love is really just our shadow, the hidden, unhealed part of us, reaching out for someone who triggers our deepest wounds. It's not love, it's unconscious. Recognition. Your mind, desperate for healing, holds on to someone who mirrors the broken parts of you. And so you stay. Not because of who they are, but because of what they awaken in you. What if I told you that this pain, this obsession, this anxiety you feel every time you're ignored or pushed away, it has less to do with that person, and everything to do with what you're still searching for within yourself? In this video, we're going to take a deep, raw, and transformative journey into your own psyche. We'll uncover the real reasons why you're attached to someone who keeps hurting you, and more importantly, how you can finally break free. But I must warn you, this will not be easy. The truth never is. Still, only by facing it can you stop begging for love that wounds you, and begin the most important search of all, the search for yourself. So, are you ready? Then let's move forward. Have you ever truly asked yourself why you're so deeply drawn to someone who continues to harm you? Even when you recognize the pain, the manipulation, the exhaustion, something within still clings, still hopes, still begs. Why? The answer doesn't lie in them. It lives within you, hidden much deeper than you may realize. And that's exactly where we're headed next. You're not truly attached to the person you're attached to the meaning they held within your internal world. Often, what we long for in others is not the person themselves, but the missing pieces of ourselves we never dared to face. We carry gaps, emotional wounds, unmet needs, forgotten parts, and when someone appears to reflect or soothe them, we project onto them the illusion of wholeness. This projection is so powerful that it can easily be mistaken for love. But it's not love. It's dependency disguised as devotion. What starts as admiration and connection can quickly spiral into obsession. When reality doesn't match the fantasy, when that person doesn't live up to the ideal we created, we begin to lose ourselves in the space between who they are and who we hoped they would be. And instead of walking away, we cling harder. We tolerate disrespect. We justify mistreatment. We shrink ourselves, sabotage our boundaries, and suffer in silence, all for something we believe is love, when in truth, it was never truly about them. It was about what we projected onto them, a need, a hope, a longing. That's the painful truth. It wasn't love, it was emotional hunger fueled by unconscious fantasy. And as long as you keep seeking outside what is broken inside, you will remain stuck in the same invisible prison. You will depend on unread messages, random compliments, fleeting attention, and validation that never stays. Because deep down, there's a belief quietly guiding your choices that you're only valuable if someone else says so. Carl Jung warned us of this very thing. He said, as long as you do not integrate these hidden parts within yourself, you will continue to fall into the same patterns, repeating the same cycles, choosing the same people with different faces. This isn't bad luck, it's psychological fate. It's the unconscious directing your life until you make it conscious. So how do you break free? How do you stop living to satisfy the emotional expectations of others and begin reclaiming your truth, your essence, your voice? How do you shift from surviving for love to actually choosing yourself? That's what we'll begin to uncover in the next part, the unconscious need for validation, and the painful price we pay every time we abandon ourselves to be accepted. When you lose yourself in a relationship, even silence can feel like abandonment. Every absence feels like a collapse, and every unreturned message becomes a rejection, a single criticism. It cuts deeper than it should, because when your identity is tied entirely to someone else, the smallest crack feels like your whole world is shattering. That's exactly where anxiety is born. That tightness in your chest, the late-night restlessness, the obsessive checking of messages, the constant scanning of their moods, these are not just habits. They are signals. They are your psyche crying out. Deep down, it's not just the fear of losing someone. It's the terrifying realization that you may no longer know who you are without them. But this anxiety isn't your enemy. It's a messenger, a warning siren blaring from deep within your soul. It's your inner world begging you to pay attention. Your mind and heart are at walled parts of you are trying to resurface, to be seen, to be acknowledged, but you keep locking them away in the dark basement of your unconscious, and the more you suppress them, the louder they knock, demanding to be let out. This is the true role of anxiety in toxic or dependent relationships. It's not just a side effect, it's the soul's alarm. And until you confront not just the symptoms, but the root cause, the cycle continues. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into this inner conflict, how anxiety is born from emotional fragmentation, and what it's desperately trying to show you about yourself. Because what you call anxiety might actually be the muffled scream of the forgotten, rejected, or amputated parts of you, the parts you sacrificed in the name of love. It's your soul telling you that something is off, that you are living a lie just to hold on, that the emotional cost of maintaining this relationship is dangerously high, and the one paying is your authentic self. Carl Jung revealed that the psyche isn't one monolithic structure. It's layered, complex, a dance between the conscious and the unconscious. And when those layers fall out of harmony, the cracks begin to show. When you silence who you truly are, just to stay in someone's arms, that harmony is shattered. And what's left is chaos inside you. This inner chaos manifests as anxiety, not just fear of being left, but a deeper pain, the split between what you feel and what you allow yourself to feel. Every time you swallow your tears to avoid being too much, every time you say I'm fine when you're breaking apart inside, you drive a wedge between your real self and the version you show to the world. Anxiety becomes your defense mechanism, a desperate attempt by your unconscious to restore the balance that's been lost. Picture a war inside. On one side, the false self trying to win approval at any cost. On the other, the true self gasping for air, yearning to live authentically. That's why your heart races, because your soul is running, escaping a life that no longer fits. That's why you live in constant fear of being left, because deep down, you've already abandoned yourself. And the truth is, no reply, no apology, no reunion will heal this pain. Because the problem was never just the other person. It was the disconnection from your own essence. And as long as you continue searching for peace and love in someone else, instead of rebuilding them within, anxiety will remain your constant companion. But here's the good news. Jung reminds us that even this kind of suffering is a call to transformation, not a life sentence. And in the next part, we'll explore that path, the journey of returning to yourself. That inner battle between your false self and your authentic self is more than just painful. It's a signal, a call to return to yourself. Because fragmentation, as unbearable as it feels, is not the end. It's an invitation, an urgent whisper from within, asking you to look inward, to listen deeply to what this inner turmoil is trying to tell you. It's urging you to retrieve the pieces of your soul that were lost along the way, abandoned for acceptance, buried in the name of survival, and that journey, the one that leads you back to wholeness, always takes you through one of the most mysterious and powerful forces of your unconscious, the shadow. In the next part, we'll go deeper into this realm, how your psychological shadow quietly fuels the repetition of toxic cycles, and why you often find yourself choosing exactly what destroys you. Because if you truly want freedom, you must be willing to face the very parts of yourself you've spent years trying to avoid. You might believe that you consciously choose the people you get close to, that you're in control of who you allow into your life. But what if that isn't entirely true? What if, without realizing it, the part of you that you've buried, the part you've denied, has been silently making those decisions all along? Carl Jung called this hidden force the shadow. It includes everything you've been taught not to be, everything labeled wrong, shameful, or unacceptable by your parents, your culture, or society at large. So, you learned to hide it, to suppress your anger, your need for attention, your boldness, your ambition. You buried these traits so deeply that you convinced yourself they were gone. But here's the truth: burying something doesn't destroy, it just moves it out of sight. And what happens to all that repressed energy? It waits for a stage. And there's no better stage for the shadow to emerge than your relationships. You unknowingly attract people who reflect your shadow, carry traits that mirror the parts of you that you've disowned. That's why you find yourself stuck in familiar pain, even with different people. You change the name, the face, the setting, but the pattern, it repeats. You shrink yourself, you're hurt, you blame yourself, you beg for affection and call it love. This is not just misfortune. It's a destiny scripted by your own unhealed darkness. Do you find yourself constantly involved with emotionally unavailable people? With narcissists? With manipulators? Ask yourself, what part of your shadow are they reflecting? Maybe you've spent your life rejecting your own anger, your need to be seen, or your desire for control. So, you fall into submission, handing your power over to those who embody the very traits you deny in yourself. The shadow works through projection. You hate in others what you've never dared to face in yourself. You love in others what you've abandoned within. It's a cruel, painful loop, but it continues until you finally look inward and confront the truth. Because as long as you ignore your shadow, it will keep pulling you into the same emotional patterns over and over until you're forced to see it. Jung once said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." You cannot truly escape toxic relationships without understanding why you are drawn to them. That takes bravery, the bravery to admit that some of the chaos isn't coming from the outside, but from within you. From old wounds, forgotten traumas, and buried desires. And that's where we're going next. The process of integrating the shadow, not by avoiding it, but by finally welcoming it back into the light. Are you ready to go even deeper? After facing the parts of yourself you've hidden for so long, a natural question arises. How do you begin to turn all of this pain, this shadow, into something powerful? How do you interrupt the cycle of emotional self-sabotage that's been quietly repeating in the background of your life? And more importantly, how do you begin to rebuild the most vital relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself? Carl Jung called this deep, transformative journey individuation. And in the next chapter of this path, we'll dive headfirst into how this process leads you back to your center. How choosing to become whole again may be the first true act of emotional liberation you've ever made. So now that you've stared directly into the eyes of your shadow, are you ready to start healing? If these words resonate with something deep inside you, know this: you're not alone. My ebook, Beyond the Shadow, was created for moments like this. It unpacks Jung's key teachings and provides grounded, practical tools to help you understand yourself at a much deeper level. You'll find the link in the pinned comment. Eventually, there comes a point when the cost of living divided becomes too high to bear. You can no longer be two versions of yourself, the one you present to the world and the one that silently screams inside. It's at this moment, when the inner tension becomes unbearable, that true healing begins. For Carl Jung, this breaking point marked the start of individuation. It's the psychological journey where you stop living as a puppet of your wounds, your masks, and your outdated coping strategizing begin to become who you truly are underneath all the layers. But don't let the word individuation fool you. This is not a gentle walk in the park. It is a confrontation, a reckoning. You will have to face everything you've spent your life avoiding, the insecurities that shaped you, the traumas you buried, the patterns that quietly led you into self-destruction. You'll need to look closely at the dynamics you yourself created. And most painfully, you'll need to accept that, at many points in your life, you were a participant in your own suffering, not because you desired pain, but because it was the only way you knew how to survive. Because your sense of self was built on absence, on needing approval, on fearing rejection more than isolation. Individuation begins in the moment you stop chasing after those who don't see you, and instead, finally look in the mirror with radical honesty. When you start asking yourself, why do I keep abandoning myself just to be close to others? What emptiness am I trying to fill? What part of me do I give away every time I beg for love or stay silent in the face of disrespect? These questions sting, but they are necessary. They're the ones that finally tear through the illusion you've been clinging to, and slowly, you begin to reclaim your soul. Every time you set a boundary, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you choose to be quiet rather than plead, you honor your worth. Every time you say no instead of folding to please others, you're saying yes to the most sacred part of who you are. You start to dissolve the old self, the one designed to be liked, to be needed done. Begin constructing a new self, more whole, more grounded, more real. And then comes the turning point. You reconnect with your center at that moment. The other, the person you used to beg for attention or love, stops being your savior. You no longer look outward for validation. You no longer need someone else's approval to feel worthy. You no longer crave affection as a way to patch the holes in your identity, because finally you come home to yourself, to your own breath, your own body, your own truth. Jung wrote that individuation is the realization of the self, the essence of who you are, liberated from the masks of the persona and the chains of the shadow. It is the process of becoming whole again, and when you reach this place, something remarkable happens. You realize you don't need those who once made you feel small. In the next part, we'll explore what it really means to build a life, not around your fears or your emotional dependencies, but around your values, your strength, and your authentic self. Are you ready to live as the person you were always meant to be? Let's go deeper. Once you begin to rediscover your true self, the next step becomes clear. How do you take all this awareness and turn it into real, lasting freedom? You don't need to keep being hurt just to feel alive. You only needed to remember your pain does not define you. It's not your identity. It's merely one chapter of your story, not the whole book. But before we reach the end of this emotional journey, there's one more step that must be taken, perhaps the most vital one of all. That step is about translating this new awareness into everyday life. What does all of this look like in practice? How do you finally and fully break the invisible thread that ties you to those who have hurt you? And beyond that, how do you turn this act of letting go into a powerful return to yourself? If you've made it this far, it's not by accident. It's because, deep within you, there was already a voice whispering, something needs to change. Maybe for a long time, you didn't know what to call the ache you felt. You thought it was neediness, weakness, maybe even shame. But now you know it was never about weakness. It was your soul calling out, a silent scream from within, saying, you've carried too much pain, made too many compromises, and drifted so far from who you really are that sometimes you barely recognize yourself in the mirror. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It's not about deleting memories or pretending that none of it ever hurt. No, real letting go is much deeper. It's about understanding what happened, accepting the pain, and still choosing to release it. It's realizing that someone who hurt you may have belonged to a certain chapter of your life, but they don't need to appear in the chapters that follow, because holding on to someone who continues to wound you is like trying to swim across the ocean while dragging an anchor. You won't make it to the other shore. Rule: drown first. Don't be misled. Letting go can hurt. It's not easy. Breaking emotional bonds, especially the invisible ones, takes courage. Because when you walk away, you're not just leaving someone behind, you're also laying to rest the hopes, fantasies, and dreams that never came to life. You're mourning the future that never arrived, but there's something sacred in that pain. It's not the pain of loss, it's the pain of rebirth. This pain is what allows you to finally reclaim the parts of yourself that were abandoned. What clears the space that used to be occupied by absence and disappointment. And when you do that, something powerful happens. You begin to take up space again. Real space. The space of someone who knows their worth. You no longer need to shrink yourself just to stay in relationships that suffocate you. You don't have to contort yourself to meet the expectations of people who never truly saw your soul. The moment has come not to prove anything, not to fight for crumbs, but to choose yourself. And let's be clear, this isn't selfishness. It's integrity. Because as long as you keep trying to hold together the ties that already broke, you'll keep drifting further from your own salvation. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are." And maybe, just maybe, the most courageous thing you can do right now is this. Stop trying to fix the past. Stop trying to change those who cannot see you. And instead, make a vow with the full strength of your soul to live from your truth. No more masks, no more chains, no more patterns that keep dragging you back into the same pain. So now, Ask yourself, what do you need to let go of to finally be free? Write it in the comments. Use this space as your own quiet ritual. Let your words become the symbol of your first real step toward liberation. Write them as if you're speaking directly to yourself, because you are. And if this message stirred something in you, if it reached a place you've been afraid to face, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't chase easy answers. We look for real, deep truths, the kind that can change your life. And don't stop here. The next video is just as essential as this one. It may contain the final piece you've been missing, the key that completes the puzzle. Let's keep going. You're closer to yourself than you've ever been.